hello there. Thank you for joining me for this week's edition of Telile 24/7. I'm your host, Adam Cook, and this week we're taking you around the Strait region with us. In just a few moments, I'll sit down with Potlotek First Nations Economic Development Officer Tahirh to talk about an exciting spring and summer in the Richmond County Mi'kmaq community. We're also going to catch up with some items from Richmond Municipal Council's latest regular monthly meeting, and we'll head over to Inverness County to speak with their CAO, Keith MacDonald, about a new housing survey the county is conducting with its residents. And we'll have highlights from the Port Hawkesbury Pride Parade that took place just a few days ago. But we begin with our ongoing coverage of the situation at the Strait-Richmond Hospital in Evanston. The Nova Scotia Health Authority implemented a new ER model for the hospital just a couple of weeks ago. That's continuing to cause consternation for local residents and for Richmond Municipal Council. The Nova Scotia Health Authority has ordered staff at the Evanston Hospital to closely monitor patient capacity levels throughout the day, and it's given them the authority to shut down the ER with only a few minutes' notice to the public if the existing staff can't keep up with the patient load at any given moment. So, 3 members of the Nova Scotia Health Authority's Eastern Zone joined Monday night's Richmond Municipal Council meeting by Zoom to try to answer councillors' questions and shed some light on the reasons behind the abrupt shutdown scenario at the Strait-Richmond ER. Basically, it comes down to staffing numbers. The NSHA had already confirmed that the Strait-Richmond is currently coping with 10 nursing vacancies, as well as ongoing struggles to keep a physician on duty throughout any given week. On Monday evening, we learned that the situation could get even more difficult as the summer kicks in. Health Authority officials confirmed that Port Hawkesbury-based General Physician Dr. Paul Pluta will be out of his office for the grand majority of the summer, while his colleague, Dr. James Collins, is edging closer to retirement. However, even as the NSHA struggles to keep doctors on call for the Strait-Richmond's ER, they are also insisting that their priority for the 42-year-old Evanston Hospital is to have its outpatients department running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as soon as possible. That could be a tall order, considering that this wasn't even the case before the new ER model was introduced 2 weeks ago. Here's what Richmond Warden Amanda Mombourquette had to say about it all.
Yeah, I mean, my gut reaction continues to be one of great concern. I'm hearing from constituents that they're worried about the future of our hospital, and I'm worried about the future of it as well. There's a lot of vacancies. It's become pretty extreme, and I guess it was great to see that on multiple places in their presentation they said our goal is clearly to get back to 24/7 care, because of course we worry that this is the next step to closure, right? So it's really great to see them reassure the community and reassure us of that. That being said, there's a road ahead, and everybody's been working really hard on recruitment efforts. I'm kind of the mindset that when you keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, there's a definition around that. But we need to look at doing things differently. And I think the way that NSH approaches this, and the way that Cape Breton South, Recruiting for Health approaches this, the way the councils approach it, we have to find a new way, a better way to work together to make sure that we're creating collaborative spaces that are inviting to people to want to work in. And part of that is the housing piece, part of it is the community connections piece. There's so many facets to this, and we continue to work really hard to find those new and innovative models.
The warden and councillors were also reassured by the Nova Scotia Health Authority that even if staff shortages persist at the Strait-Richmond Hospital, its closure would simply create an overflow of patients that couldn't be handled by other Eastern Zone hospitals. So that option is out of the cards for the foreseeable future. There was some recognition by Council of the enormity of the task ahead of Nova Scotia Health. The warden reminded the delegation that the county has been investigating the possibility of refurbishing a former school building, specifically the West Richmond Education Centre, also known as Walter Fougere School, that's located near the hospital in Evanston and could serve as housing or office space for new doctors, nurses, or other health professionals. At the same time, councillors took the health authority to task over gaps in the ambulance system in Richmond County. Warden Mombourquette noted that a constituent in her District 4 had to wait 4 hours for an ambulance to arrive just a week ago. We'll have more on this story next week on Telile 24/7. Now, while this new ER model has been taking shape at the Strait-Richmond Hospital in recent days, there's also been a new wrinkle in terms of the story of healthcare professional recruitment for both the Strait region and the province as a whole. Last week, the Minister of Health and Wellness for Nova Scotia, Michelle Thompson, confirmed that the period from April 2021 to the end of March 2022 has been a record year for physician recruitment for Nova Scotia. 163 new doctors have settled into the province during that time. 68 have left the province. However, that leaves a net gain of 95 new physicians for Nova Scotia. And there's some optimism that while this won't fix the Strait-Richmond situation right away, it could lead to bigger and better things for physician recruitment and healthcare professional recruitment for our region. I got some commentary on this from the MLA for Richmond, Trevor Boudreau, a PC caucus colleague of Health Minister Michelle Thompson. During an interview that is part of a larger program on the importance of community media to our region, I decided to ask Trevor Boudreau about his take on the latest physician recruitment numbers, and we traced it back to his days on Port Hawkesbury Town Council when he was an early part of the initiative now known as Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health. Here are some comments from MLA Boudreau looking back on that period right now.
You know, Town Council at that time made local physician and recruitment a priority, and I was tasked quite a bit with that role. And certainly that was one of the reasons that I made that leap to run provincially, was because of our PC caucus's desire to make healthcare a priority and understanding there was a crisis there. And so when you get good news announcements that kind of bring it full circle to where you know, as a town council said, this was an important piece for us, and now to see those types of things kind of making some steps, right? Those are steps in the right direction, and that's you know, it's one person had said to me, you know, how do you eat an elephant one piece at a time, and that's what these types of announcements are. It's about creating some focus on you know, attracting and retaining healthcare professionals. So I'm pleased with where we're at, and I'm glad you're still here talking to me about these types of things, and hopefully over the course of the next little while, we'll be talking more about it too.
We'll be talking more, and I mean, we've been very lucky not just to have yourself talking about it, but also other players and stakeholders in local healthcare. We spoke just a couple of weeks ago on Telile 24/7 to the Director of Rural Health for the Eastern Zone of the Nova Scotia Health Authority, Angela MacArthur, about the situation up at the Strait-Richmond, and we've had regular contributions from the likes of Gina MacDonald with the Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health Committee, and as well Dr. Kevin Orrell, who heads up Nova Scotia's new healthcare recruitment office in Halifax, serving the whole province. So we've appreciated being able to bring in not just yourself to talk about this, but also some of the other stakeholders in bringing rural physicians and also nurses and nurse practitioners to our communities.
Oh, and I mean, you know, it's a group effort, right? You learn fairly quickly when you're in this. It's everybody has roles and responsibilities, but you're all trying to kind of get on that same page and kind of get to that end result that we're all looking for, which is a strong healthcare system across the province, and in our case, especially rural.
One last question on this just before we move on. An announcement from Minister Thompson yesterday, the health minister, talking about a record number for Nova Scotia in terms of physician recruitment from April of 2021 to the end of March 2022. 163 new physicians settling up in Nova Scotia. There have been 68 that have left, but that still leaves a net gain of 95 new physicians for the province. Those are big numbers, still a lot of work to do, but your thoughts on the announcement made by Minister Thompson?
Of course, we're thrilled with that, and it shows that some of the initiatives that we've been taking as a government have been bearing some fruit. Keep in mind, these are early days, right? And so Dr. Orrell and his team are now creating kind of the system and the vision of how we're gonna ask for that that more rural support and get those community groups like Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health on board across the province, so that we can also support initiatives like attraction of nurses and doctors.
Now we're going to shift our focus on Telile 24/7 to Potlotek First Nation. The community is like many around the Strait region in that it's had to postpone several of its traditional events due to COVID-19. But with restrictions being lifted in Nova Scotia as of March 21st, a lot of exciting things have already been happening in Boudreau First Nation, and there's even more on the docket for this summer, including the return of the Mi'kmaq Summer Games and the traditional Mission to St. Anne and Boudreau powwow that take place in July. To get more on this and about some other exciting developments for Boudreau First Nation, I sat down with the community's Economic Development Officer, Tahirh Paul. Here's our conversation at the Telile studios in Arishat right now. And now joining us in the Telile studios to talk about everything that's going on at Boudreau First Nation these days and looking into the summer, we're pleased to have Boudreau's Economic Development Officer, Tahirh Paul. Tahirh, thank you for joining me on Telile 24/7 today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you because there is a lot going on in Boudreau First Nation right now. But I want to get into your history as the Economic Development Officer. I understand you've been serving in the post for 3.5 years. What has that experience been like for you?
It's been very exciting. We've done a lot of projects around tourism, food security. We're working towards clean energy projects as well right now. So it's a very happening time in Boudreau.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about each of these things as we go on. And I want to begin by asking you, from both the tourism and culture side of things, Boudreau First Nation has been very involved in a recent development at the St. Peter's Canal called Canal Landing. Can you tell me a little bit about the role Boudreau has played and about the recent opening for the Canal Landing spot?
Yeah, so that was one of the first projects that I did in partnership with St. Peter's Economic Development, where we realized that we need a tourism outlet in St. Peter's because it's somewhere people can gather and go and experience Mi'kmaq culture, as well as go and fry up some fish or fish off the St. Peter's Canal. So it was like a really interesting opportunity to work with St. Peter's Economic Development to make this happen.
And it sounds like it's been a great success so far, that the turnout has been terrific over there.
Absolutely. I mean, we had a little hiccups with the global pandemic that affected everybody, and especially our tourism sector in Nova Scotia. But we're really excited to be back at it now, and we recently hosted an event down there for National Indigenous Peoples Day, and that was really well attended.
Yeah, I hear that you folks thought you might get 30, but you wound up with 300 coming for that.
Absolutely, and that took our staff for a little bit of a whirlwind. We were unprepared for that many people, but it was really good to see, and the flood of orange shirts to support like Every Child Matters, and the flags for Pride flying around and everybody laughing, and it was such a great event. It was full of joy and dancing, the drums and like the music and the dancers were the vibrant colors. It was such a great day.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm glad it worked out so well. The first time that I was in the same room with you in your capacity as Boudreau's Economic Development Officer was another great day for the community, was the opening of Boudreau's permanent food bank site back in November of 2020. And around the same time, you folks started an ambitious project that also dealt with food security. Can you tell me a little bit about the Boudreau greenhouse efforts?
Absolutely. So back in 2020, we were approached by Ulnaweg Foundation to establish a food security project in community. So we were lucky to have been chosen, and luckily the chief and council at the time agreed that this is a strong initiative that Boudreau should be pursuing. So we kind of did a shotgun start and established this 40 by 60 greenhouse with a geothermal climate battery that allows us to grow a lot earlier in the season, and complemented by an end house that allows us to start the seedlings under like those LED lights and all these different climates that allow for different production. So we've gone from producing zero food to producing 60 pounds a week at least, and we're our greenhouse manager has done wonderful things there. Our staff, we hired so many people, so it's creating very meaningful employment in Boudreau.
Any idea how many people specifically are hired to work at the greenhouse right now?
Well, between the carpenters and the laborers and the sellers and all of them, I believe we hired 21 so far. Some seasonal, obviously, and based on programming, but it's good to see the interest and the youth, and we're partnered with the school who comes across to do field trips and teaches the kids about like the importance of agriculture and the opportunities that exist for a career.
Is this food available at the food bank for people to get, or how is it distributed within the community?
Well, the food security project is separate from the food bank. The food bank is for anybody who needs anything. You know, it's open. If you need something, go there. That we will help you. But also the food security site is just more so like you go there, you buy the produce, but it's heavily discounted for Potlotek community to, you know, create a sense of community ownership, but also affordability, because right now the price of food is unreal.
Especially important as we've seen inflation really take a hit in terms of buying basic food and basic groceries over the last little bit. So,
absolutely. It's real. I can't even imagine how people can afford to buy groceries right now. So we're doing our little part trying to help out, and it's open to anybody who wants to come and buy produce. So.
Well, let's take a look at another aspect of developing low carbon developments and green friendly developments like the Greenhouse Project, because in March, Potlotek First Nation, in partnership with Wagamah First Nation in Inverness County, was approved for funding through the province's Low Carbon Initiatives program to partner with the Nova Scotia Community College to offer photovoltaic training for people to work in the solar industry. Can you tell me a little bit about why that's so important to Potlotek and why Potlotek First Nation wanted to partner on that?
Absolutely. So Potlotek established a solar farm, like a ground-mounted solar farm in the back of our band office. And as a result of that, I identified a need where through our power and purchase agreement, we're responsible to maintain those solar panels. So it's like, okay, we don't have the capacity to do that. So as economic development officer, my job is to build capacity in community. So I identified this need. I wrote the proposal to the Department of Natural Resources and Renewables, and lucky to say that it was approved to develop a custom curriculum with Nova Scotia Community College to develop that. And so we're going to be training people from Wagamah and Potlotek, and as that partnership develops, we'll see what comes out of that.
And it seems like there's been a great relationship between Potlotek First Nation and most Indigenous communities here in Unama'ki with the Nova Scotia Community College and with the Strait Area campus in particular. Are you pleased to be able to see that continue with this new project?
Absolutely. NSCC has been an invaluable partner with our First Nation communities, with the trainings that they do and the curriculum that exists and their involvement in activities and events around First Nations. It's a really good, thorough partnership.
Well, we want to finish up here by looking towards the summer, and there's a lot happening in Potlotek this summer, and in particular, one of the big ones is the arrival of the Mi'kmaq Summer Games coming in July. Can you tell me a bit about what this means to Potlotek and about how the preparations are going as we head toward that big day?
We were originally supposed to host the games in 2020. So it's really fortunate that the other communities allowed us to host it again in 2022. So Potlotek is bustling right now. There's construction everywhere. Everybody's busy. Everybody's like doing things, and it's just you drive down the street and there's these different projects happening, and everybody's committing to them, and like they're all working together to make them happen. So we're gearing up to host these Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq Summer Games, and it starts in July. So July 15th to the 24th is when that happens. And in the middle of that is also our powwow, which will be July 23rd to the 24th. So we'll see athletes come from all over Mi'kma'ki, right up to Listugush, come down and spend time in our county. So, you know, every business should be gearing up to host these athletes, because they're going to be hungry. They want to go sleep somewhere. They want to attend your events and your festivals and your dances. They want to experience what it is to be in Richmond County or Cape Breton. You know, they need your help to establish their best time in this region.
And you're talking about the Summer Games and the powwow, and I know a lot of people come for the Mission to St. Anne as well at the end of July. So while Potlotek is busy all 12 months of the year, as you know, it really seems like it's the summer when the rest of the world comes in and discovers what a special place it is.
Absolutely, and we've been making efforts to bring in people year-round, but definitely this July is going to be exceptionally busy for Potlotek, which is really good because of the economic impacts we've seen with not hosting the games, with not having the mission. So it's really good to see that these people are coming now, and we're going to see that economic increase to our Potlotek First Nation.
Well, we're excited to see the impact it's going to make on Potlotek and on Richmond County. And I know there's been some outreach from Potlotek to both Richmond County and Port Hawkesbury to share some of the facilities, including in Port Hawkesbury, the Strait Area pool for the aquatic events. So it's good to see not just Potlotek really rising to the fore, but your local partners coming on board as well.
Absolutely, and that's why it's important to have good relationships with our neighboring communities. And like we have those relationships now, and we're on the cusp of greatness. We're moving towards something that is good. Like, it's phenomenal. The potential is phenomenal.
It has been a treat to learn about what's already happening in Potlotek and what's coming in the summer, and we appreciate the diligence and the energy that you bring to your post and that you brought to this interview. So Tahirh, Paul, thank you for joining me today on Telile 24/7.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being here.
No trouble at all. Tahirh Paul is the Economic Development Officer for Potlotek First Nation, and we've been speaking to her here at the Telile Community Television Studios. Stay tuned for more of Telile 24/7 in just a moment. And now let's return to the Richmond Municipal Council chambers for more discussion from this week's regular monthly meeting, which was held just a few days ago. At that time, Richmond Warden Amanda Mombourquette sought Council's approval to invite 2 members of Port Hawkesbury town staff, specifically Chief Administrative Officer Terry Doyle and the Director of Finance for Port Hawkesbury, Aaron McKechnie, to come visit a Richmond Council meeting in a few months' time. Why that invitation? Well, it's to discuss strengthening the terms of reference for the management committee that's shared between Richmond, Port Hawkesbury, and the County of Inverness, and governs the Alan J. McKechnie Regional Airport, located just beyond Port Hastings on Highway 105 in Inverness County. Here's the discussion that took place at the council meeting on Monday in terms of why Warden Mombourquette and other councillors feel it's important to have this discussion about the terms of reference for the Airport Management Committee.
The municipalities of Richmond and Inverness, plus the town of Port Hawkesbury, we have together an airport management committee. The purpose is to oversee the operation, management, and development of the Alan J. McKechnie Regional Airport, which is located in Port Hastings. The committee is chaired by Mayor Brenda Chisholm-Beaton and vice chaired by Deputy Warden Melanie Sampson. And I guess I just wanted to, I know we've discussed this before, how critical the airport is to the value proposition of the Strait Area. Certainly as industry kind of heats up in this region, hopefully around hydrogen and other developments, we are seeing more and more industry partners use it, and of course there's always been that tourism aspect of use as well. But given the increasing importance with like I said, the industrial development, and after some discussion at our last airport committee meeting, I just wanted to throw it out as an idea to council to potentially invite Terry Doyle and Aaron McKechnie, who provide sort of admin services for the committee, to do a bit of a review of the terms of reference with the council. And I should say that same invitation I have suggested to Inverness County Council. But I think it would be really great to help us recognize our obligations under the terms of reference, to make sure we're all comfortable with those obligations, and to make sure that we're all fully familiar with the Airport Management Committee, as opposed to the operational side on with the private sector's service provider, Celtic Air. So I'm wondering if council would be favorable to an invitation for September sometime. Maybe to have them even come to a committee of the whole meeting, depending on what we have. Yeah. I'll be honest. I don't have the most recent copy, I don't think, of the terms of reference. So even the one I have isn't dated. So I have asked Terry and Aaron to send that along. So I will circulate it once it lands, and then we'll have it for kind of backup before we go in. Does that sound okay to folks? Okay. So perhaps I'll ask for a motion then to request that Terry Doyle and Aaron McKechnie provide a review of the terms of reference for the Airport Management Committee in the fall. And we'll work on the date.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Sampson. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Digdon. Is there any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried.
Another thing that Richmond County and the town of Port Hawkesbury have in common with Inverness County, they're trying to deal with a housing shortage in their municipalities, and they've turned to the Cape Breton Partnership to help survey their residents about their housing priorities. Inverness County is the latest municipality to take on this survey task. Their housing survey runs until July the 5th, so we thought it might be a good idea to speak with the CAO of Inverness County, Keith MacDonald, about the housing concerns in that part of Cape Breton Island and why they're not all that far off on what we're experiencing in Richmond County and Port Hawkesbury. Here's my conversation with Inverness CAO Keith MacDonald right now. And joining us now on Telile 24/7, we're pleased to have the Chief Administrative Officer, the CAO for Inverness County. Joining us from his office in Port Hood is Keith MacDonald. Keith, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for the opportunity, Adam.
No trouble at all. And we have you here today because Inverness County has just launched a wide-ranging survey on housing issues and on housing needs in the county in cooperation with the Cape Breton Partnership. Can you give me a sense of what led to the county making this choice and wanting to seek out residents' views on housing?
Certainly, the municipality and previous councils have done some work on housing in the past, but due to COVID and the impacts it's had throughout the world, not just on housing and population movements, we felt it was a good time to reach out to a broader audience and try to get as much feedback from local residents and those people interested in possibly moving to the area on their perspectives of housing in Inverness County.
Now, I know that it's not new that Inverness County, like so many other Strait Area municipalities, has been having housing issues in the last little while. I remember during my previous life with the Reporter newspaper covering a county council meeting in Port Hood where we heard from Chad Monroe of the company Halifax Biomedical Limited in Mabu, talking about how difficult it was for him to be able to provide housing for employees that he was attempting to bring in. And we're not talking just people from different parts of Canada, we're talking of people from around the world. Is that an issue still? Are you finding that the business community is having trouble being able to find housing for its employees?
Yes, certainly that is still an issue for many employers that are attracting talent to their organizations. The gaps that we have here is that we have very limited long-term rental properties available for individuals, and in other markets, certainly there's more of that available. And additionally, we just do not throughout the county have many units, housing, apartments, whatever it may be, for sale. So both of those compound the issue. And then on top of that, we've had this significant shift over the last number of years before COVID, and now we see it happening now that COVID restrictions have lessened. This shift to Airbnbs, which have primarily impacted properties for sale. So you have an individual or a family group purchase property so that they can convert a residential home into an Airbnb unit. And then as well, we have the long-term rental market basically being replaced by Airbnbs because owners can potentially make significantly more money on making those units available for Airbnb properties. So particularly with Airbnbs, because we've had such a significant growth in Inverness County, it's really taken that long-term rental market and compressed it significantly. So and we are having more and more businesses starting in Inverness County. And the last census population showed an uptick in population for the first time in many, many years. So all that combined is really tightening the market. And then even additionally to that, because of COVID, we've seen more and more people from other provinces and jurisdictions look at Nova Scotia, Inverness County as a place to live. And they're competing with other individuals that are looking for properties that may already live here. So it's just getting more and more competitive, certainly.
It's interesting to hear you talking about the Airbnb situation, because I know that's been happening in different parts of Nova Scotia and even in Prince Edward Island as well. How difficult, from your vantage point, is it to be able to strike that balance between encouraging tourism development in Inverness County, which is so critical to the county and to Cape Breton as a whole, but also making sure that housing opportunities are still available and that the needs of not only businesses but also just local residents are met?
Well, this is a very complex picture, and that's why the municipality in part reached out to through the survey mechanism, basically people that are in the market, to get as much feedback as possible so we can start prioritizing where we can make some impact. So it's difficult altogether. We've seen some employers look at purchasing some property or units themselves to make available for employees. So the solutions sometimes are out there, but a lot of businesses don't have that capability to go out and start developing staff accommodation. So it's a challenge now, and will continue to be a challenge unless we look at some solutions.
What can you tell me, Keith, about the county's approach to affordable housing? Obviously, that factors into the whole equation, not just in terms of housing in general, but especially tending to low income or those that are not as well off. So what approach has Inverness County taken in this regard?
Well, affordable housing is strongly under the purview of what's called the Cape Breton Island Housing Authority, as well as Nova Scotia Housing. And Nova Scotia Housing has those programs for the private sector to participate in order to offset some costs for them to develop units for the affordable market. But as we've seen over the last few years, with escalating costs of construction, escalating property values, that amount of funding the private sector can receive through these programs still does not make it a profitable, let alone it's most likely it's most likely going to be at a loss if they tackle some of these projects. So we've been communicating with the province of Nova Scotia. We had a regional meeting just recently between municipalities and the Department of Municipal Affairs, which both has Nova Scotia Housing and the Nova Scotia Housing Authorities under. So we're trying to work with them to figure out some next steps. The province is making some significant changes. I think it was last week that the Auditor General's report came out regarding Housing Nova Scotia and the housing authorities in Nova Scotia and how they're managed. They made significant recommendations for changes. So the municipalities in Nova Scotia are going to obviously be communicating with the province of Nova Scotia to make sure that those changes make sense and that it helps that affordable housing market.
We'll hope certainly for some progress there. Now, I want to circle back to the survey, Keith, and obviously this is for the entirety of Inverness County. But I am curious as to whether you and your council colleagues and staff are finding that there are some parts of the county where some of these issues are rising to the fore more than others. And we certainly don't want to put you in a position of having to point things out where there aren't things to point out, but are there any 2 or 3 or more communities where these seem to be problematic issues?
Well, maybe not problematic, but we're getting significant amount of our surveys are higher percentages around the Shetty Camp area and the community of Inverness area. So we've seen that over the last number of years that there's been more and more pressure for new development in both of those communities. So a higher percentage of our survey feedback results have been coming with interest with those 2 particular areas.
All right, I'm curious to hear that, and we'll look forward to seeing where there's also participation in different parts of Inverness County.
We're certainly getting responses from throughout the county, as well as people that live external to the area, but we were just getting a bit of a higher response rate for interest in those two particular communities.
Well, we're glad to see that people are responding. I know they have until July the 5th to do so. And if people want to take part in this survey, what means do they have to do that, Keith?
Well, just get online and log into our website at the municipality, and the survey mechanism's right up front there. We've had over 650 responses to date, so we're hoping to keep driving that number up and get as much feedback as possible.
And just one last question, Keith, and it's basically about the cooperation of the Cape Breton Partnership, which has also assisted in the launching of similar housing surveys in Richmond County and the town of Port Hawkesbury. Can you tell me a bit about what it means to have them as a partner with the municipality to carry the survey process out?
Well, certainly they've had some experience in promoting the town of Port Hawkesbury's survey. We worked with them about 3 years back on a similar survey just for the community of Camp, which received a great deal of feedback, and that actually leveraged some new private sector investment. So with their experience, it's really helped us out with the proper questions within the survey and help marketing and promoting the information so we can get as much feedback as possible.
Okay. All right, well, we'll hope for the best there. We've covered a lot of ground in a short time, Keith, as I expected we would. Did you want to add anything about all this just before we wrap up?
No, thanks, Adam. Really appreciate the opportunity, and if there's any questions, obviously, from your viewers, they can contact the municipality for some further information.
All right, well, we'll hope for the best, and we wish you all well with this. And in the meantime, we appreciate you taking some time, Keith, to talk about this with us on Telile 24/7. Thank you so much.
Great. Always good to see you.
Yes, and yourself as well. Keith MacDonald is the Chief Administrative Officer for the County of Inverness, and we've been speaking to him from his office in Port Hood today. Stay tuned for more of Telile 24/7 in just a moment. We're shifting from June into July this week, and that means that we're wrapping up our Pride Month coverage here on Telile 24/7. And right now, let's take a visit to Port Hawkesbury, where the streets were alive with people both celebrating the Two-Spirit and LGBTQIA+ community on Sunday afternoon, and those who are concerned about the safety and rights of the community and celebrating Pride Month while advocating for more freedom and more protection for those in the community and those who love them. Here's a look back at Port Hawkesbury's Pride Day right now. They came by the hundreds, some on foot with family and friends, some with dogs, some with community organizations. Several of them came in costume, some of them dressed in their finery, sporting rainbows on their vehicles as they represented not only their businesses, but the town and the Strait Area in general. Some of them came in vehicles you might not expect to see at a pride parade, and some of them came from far beyond the Strait Area, even from outside of Nova Scotia.
Prince Edward Island is here supporting you guys.
No matter who they were, how they came, or where they were coming from, they were all coming to the streets of Port Hawkesbury on the last Sunday afternoon in June for one very specific purpose: to help close out Port Hawkesbury's Pride Month celebrations with a bang. Departing from the parking lot at St. Mark's United Church, which fully endorsed Sunday's Pride activities, the parade was the largest public gathering to honor LGBTQIA and Two-Spirit community members in the 3 years that Port Hawkesbury has been holding formal public rallies of this nature. Last year's event was a low-key affair, mainly a flag raising and some art projects. However, with the lifting of COVID-19 restrictions on March 21st, organizers decided to go full tilt in their support of the LGBTQIA and Two-Spirit communities, reflecting the origins of the first Strait Area Pride Rally in 2020. That event came together over a period of 10 days after Port Hawkesbury Mayor Brenda Chisholm-Beaton was sent a critical email for raising the Pride flag in front of the Port Hawkesbury Civic Centre in June 2020. The activist who has been front and center for all 3 Pride Month celebrations in Port Hawkesbury, Taylor Linloff, didn't mince words about what they thought of the humble origins of Port Hawkesbury Pride and the concept that detractors are still out there trying to stop people from doing it.
Port Hawkesbury Pride started as a protest march because of homophobes who may very well be still in this town, lurking and spreading their views, but we have to speak louder than them, don't we? Let me hear you say it. There is no place for homophobia, transphobia, acephobia, or queerphobia in Port Hawkesbury. Can I hear you say no place? You know, I've had some homophobes on the internet tell me that a parade doesn't save lives, but if a parade is the be-all, end-all for you for pride, then I'm sorry, but you don't have enough information learned yet to form that opinion anyway.
Among the participants from across Cape Breton Island who joined Lindelof and Mayor Chisholm Beaton in their remarks to the crowd gathered at the Strait Area Yacht Club on Sunday afternoon, the founder and head of the Cape Breton Transgender Network and a board member for Cape Breton Pride, Veronica Merrifield, who made the trip from Marion Bridge and reminded the crowd of the long road that many have traveled since the first Pride events happened as part of rioting that took place in the late 60s.
53 years ago, Marshall P. Johnson threw a brick. We're here to celebrate that. 51 years ago, I didn't have the language to know what I was going through. And here I am at 55, seeing everybody gathered round here. Education and visibility is so important, and I want to thank every one of you for being here, for being visible, for standing for acceptance.
That acceptance also extended to the Two-Spirit members of Cape Breton's Mi'kmaq communities. Mayor Brenda Chisholm Beaton brought up two of them, Rosie Sillaboy from Waigama First Nation, now living in Malagwatch, and the parade's Grand Marshal, Member 2 Elder Patricia O'Coin.
I'm quite surprised that all the people here, especially the little ones, that's good parenting, and you know, to be accepting of different peoples, but we're not different, we're all the same.
Wow, this is an amazing event, and I'd like to thank Taylor and Mayor Brenda for inviting us. Inclusion, love is love, and looking forward to the next one. Well, all you, happy Pride.
Port Hawkesbury's Pride activities of June 26 were also an opportunity to support LGBTQIA and Two-Spirit youth in other parts of Cape Breton Island, specifically through funds raised for the Sydney-based Cape Breton Youth Project. As part of an emotional address to the crowd at the Strait Area Yacht Club, Taylor Lindelof shared portions of a poem they had written for the occasion, driving home the need to support the community's youngest and perhaps most troubled members.
I called into a radio show recently and I talked about what it was like to be a queer young person in Port Hawkesbury, and spoiler, it isn't easy. I didn't have the language I needed to grow up to be who I am now. I didn't have role models I needed when I grew up. But a couple calls after me was the hardest hitting. A father called in to talk about his very young transgender daughter. That father, a grown man, broke down crying on live radio, just begging people to accept people like his daughter. That broke me as a queer individual, but more importantly, it moved me.
Away from the microphone, as the barbecue and other festivities continued at the Strait Area Yacht Club, Taylor Lindelof was thanked by other members of the LGBTQI community, including those who had grown up in Port Hawkesbury and other Strait Area communities, feeling unloved, isolated, or ashamed. With this in mind, Lindelof encouraged the hundreds that had gathered on the Port Hawkesbury waterfront for the Pride festivities to continue reaching out to those who might feel marginalized and to keep fighting for their rights, their freedom, and their safety.
Pride saves lives. A U.S. study of over 6,400 transgender adults, 45% of them experience moderate or severe levels of rejection by their families. Do you want to know a scope for that? That's roughly 3,200 adults rejected by their families. That is nearly the population of Port Hawkesbury rejected by their families. Do you know the damage that causes? If an LGBTQ plus youth has at least one, even just one supportive adult in their life, it does not have to be a parent, it could be a teacher, a healthcare provider, an aunt, an uncle, a friend. Their risk of attempting suicide goes down by 40%. It is still happening in 2022. Pride saves lives. Parents, if your child comes out to you, know that that means they feel safe with you. They accept you, so do the right thing and accept them for who they are and who they are meant to become. Pride saves lives. Coming out is more than a closet. It is opening the door to a more fulfilling and happy and true life.
And with Linlof's mother Adele Fox seen at the front of this float, watching her daughter speak at the Pride Barbecue at the Strait Area Yacht Club on Sunday afternoon, perhaps it was only fitting that Linlof paid tribute to their mother, their sister Madison, and their late father Conrad for all of their roles in their development as a queer youth.
I have a sister. I have a sister who watched me blossom from an awkward and scared girl to a brave and happy non-binary adult, and she tags me in trans memes and news on Facebook. Pride saves lives. I had a father who took me to my very first Pride parade, and he donated to the youth project. I was so deep in the non-binary closet, I probably could have found Narnia. He didn't live to see the new Taylor. Pride saves lives. I have a mom who went to the gay bar and makeup that read Proud Mom on her cheek, and she's seen me come out in so many faces I might as well have been the moon. And she gave out hugs to queer adults whose moms rejected them.
And as the Pride Barbecue wound down and participants prepared to head over to the Granville Green concert stage for a 3-hour Pride karaoke event, it was only fitting that Adele Fox, Taylor Linlof's mother, had the last word after she had spent the previous hour and a half overlooking the sale of raffle tickets whose proceeds would go to the Cape Breton Youth Project.
We had a great turnout today. Taylor and the mayor and everybody involved did a great job, right down from volunteers to sponsors to people who came along and walked and put in floats, and especially to everybody who came out today to support Pride and everybody else. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Give yourselves all a hand, guys. Thank you.
And with a little history being made in Port Hawkesbury once again during this Pride Month, plans are already underway for Pride 2023 in the Strait Area. In Port Hawkesbury, for Telile 24/7, I'm Adam Cook. Litter. It's been a problem for years, decades even, and it's still a problem in Richmond County, according to Callie Kehoe. She's an Isle Madame native who sent a letter to Richmond Municipal Council as part of a 3-pronged approach to get all levels of government to focus on a litter and dumping problem around Isle Madame. Kehoe put up a petition on change.org just a couple of months ago to win converts to her cause, and she's hoping that Richmond Municipal Council will be able to join the fight against litter as well. Here's how the conversation went on Monday evening at the Arishat Council Chambers as Richmond Municipal Councillors responded to Callie Kehoe's letter to the municipality to take on litter issues around Isle Madame and beyond.
So following a receipt of her letter, I wanted to put this on our agenda for discussion. So I want to thank Callie for your advocacy as well. I will say, a lot of her concern was related to the roads, roadside litter, and a lot of roads, most of the roads, almost all of them are provincial here. But we do support as a county, the community cleanup, as you'll recall. We do gloves and we arrange for the garbage pickup afterwards. But I recognize that only really treats the problem after the fact. So maybe there's more we could do. I did note that our Director of Public Works provided information that when there are large dump sites found, illegal dump sites, they are reported to Nova Scotia Environment for investigation and enforcement action. So that's outside of the purview of the municipality. So I guess at this point, I'll open the topic for discussion. My feeling is that we would potentially refer this to Police Advisory Committee to see if we could get some additional data on whether or not there are, there's any littering offenses being processed here, or how we might increase that. But maybe I'll look to you, Councillor Brent Sampson, if you wanted to provide some information on that.
So yeah, this did actually come up earlier today's Monday, last week I guess, at a police advisory meeting, and I'm not sure, it was raised by somebody appointed to the committee, and it may have had nothing to do with this at all. It might have been just coincidental, or I'm not sure. Regardless, the sergeant did inform us it's very tricky to prosecute these type of things because if you were to witness it, you have to be willing to put your name to it, basically, to, if you had to go to court as a witness. If they fight the ticket, basically. If you were to report it and they just paid it, that's fine. Your name may never come out. Otherwise, he said, if you are witnessing something that may take a little bit more time, say somebody was unloading a truck or something, you can call the police, and if they're able to get there in time, once they've witnessed it, they can deal with it. It doesn't have to be your name doesn't have to be attached to it from there on out. Otherwise, with small-scale littering, as damaging as it is, it's very hard to police just because of the geographic area, and most of the time there isn't witnesses. That's the problem.
You know, maybe we can put something on our site, and you know, I know school is closing, and we'll miss that loop. But even in September, we might be able to send out, you know, just a little, you know, keep your county clean, or you know, little garbage cans. We might be able to set them up along the way. I don't know, but again, it's pretty hard to police, you know, the small garbage. It's hard enough to police the large garbage, so it's definitely harder, you know, to police the small stuff thrown out of a window on the side of the road. But again, we may be able to look at, you know, either dump stations or something we might be able to discuss with staff.
As I read through the comments in the letter, we were just asked to better enforce the sections of the bylaw in order to discourage the act of littering in our community and punish those who are committing the act. And I guess my question is, like, my understanding is we don't have a lot of teeth to enforce these acts, even though they're, you know, they're in our bylaw. So, you know, I think, you know, she's also asked for us to reply and give concrete examples of how we plan to deal with the issue. And so I think as a council, we need to determine what that looks like. You know, I think keeping in mind Councillor Sampson's comments from the RCMP, I don't know that there's a lot that we can do. I know that we've put signs up around the county, and I think that probably helps, but probably minimally, you know. So I guess, like Callie, I guess I'm wondering the same question, like what else could we do that we actually can enforce in order to combat littering in the county?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, the bottom line is we don't have an enforcement officer to deal with littering. And you know, I don't see that happening, frankly, within our budget priorities in the near term. That being said, it doesn't mean it's not important. It just, there are a lot of priorities. You know, maybe the action we take is, you know, perhaps we could ask the RCMP to look back over the last number of years and to see, you know, what types of enforcement action have been taken on by them. So we will at least know that information, and then potentially look at some education, you know, to Councillor Digdon's point, going forward with the schools. You know, other than that, I'm not sure what else we could be doing.
I mean, I guess one of the things that we could address, or we could look at, and I noticed that, you know, a lot of our drive-throughs have removed the garbages, I guess. So, you know, you see a lot of cups on the road, you see whatever. Maybe that's something we can look at, you know, having put back in place, or having a discussion with the drive-through, you know, outlets to see if it's, you know, I do know when the person's in front of you going for a coffee, they usually tend to throw their old cup out and get the new one. Again, if the garbage isn't there, then they tend to throw the old cup out the window. And I'm not, you know, just picking on one individual, I'm just putting it out there.
Even to add to that, I can think specifically of, and I'm sure it's not the only place, Point Michaud Beach, where the provincial government used to have garbage cans there, and they were collected and so on of that, and now they've decided to, you know, based on budget cutbacks, I guess, there's no longer any garbage cans there, so people are expected to spend the day at the beach and pack it in, pack it out, which I understand, but at the end of the day, it's in our community. The garbage is thrown out the window a lot of times, probably leaving the beach, and that's disheartening, especially when there was an obvious solution by just having the garbage cans there and having somebody to empty them occasionally.
I know that's definitely helped in Loosedale. You know, I was part of the community cleaning up last year, and then this year it's been a marked difference in terms of garbage that we collected this year versus the year before. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we've installed 3 public garbage cans along the sidewalk.
Access.
I agree. I mean, you know, when you talk about budgets and you know, not being able to or not willing to invest in garbage cans or whatever it is, I mean, you're talking about beautifying this island and this county, and you're talking about tourism and increasing tourism. So for me, I mean, I think it's just a matter of, you know, I hate to use the word pleading with people, but, you know, educating people, pleading with people. Garbage cans, like you say, Deputy Warden, I mean, we got garbage cans on the main street here in Ayrshire. I think if you had if you had garbage cans around our county in designated areas and you educated people where these garbage cans were, and you pleaded with them or, encouraged them to say, let's all work together here and let's, you don't want garbage in your car and I understand that, and you don't want to wait till you get home, but you got designated areas where there's garbage cans in this county. Please use those garbage cans and I think it'll go a long way myself, right? So, again, it's hard to enforce when it comes to RCMP, but if you educated, you pleaded, you encouraged, and you took the steps to put more options out there in the county, I think it'll go a long way.
Okay, thank you, Councillor.
Not to put you on the spot, Councillor Digdon, but I'm going to assume, or do you know, is the park in Martinique the same way? There's probably no garbage cans there that you know
The
of?
provincial park?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, as a rule of thumb, it's not, they would have been removed since it's not maintained, so it's, again, with the same, with the same issue, people go down to the beach and then they will cart in the product, but they won't cart it back out, so again, it becomes a cleanup issue. However, like I said, I know one of the big things is the drive-throughs, and again, just the garbage in your car, so and if you do go to a drive-through, it's a proper, I don't know if it's proper, but it's common practice that people take their chips, their bars, their wrappers, and they throw everything in, Tim Hortons, Robbins, whatever drive-through. Again, that might be something that we can look at the county saying, if we stop them here before they get their next product, well, we've stopped it from going out the window.
Okay, thank you, Councillor.
I would be just, as part of this, I know it's not going to solve the whole issue, obviously, but I'd be willing to make a motion to see if we could draft a letter to send to the province to ask them to reconsider the removal of the garbage cans from the provincial day parks within the county. It's something I'd really like to see that they be put back, and I think it could make a difference.
Yep, okay. So Councillor Brent Sampson, you're making that motion?
Yes.
To have council draft a letter to the province regarding putting garbage cans back in provincial parks. Could I have a seconder on that?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Digdon. Any further discussion on that motion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. I am wondering if there is some additional information, like I would like to get that information from Sergeant Nugent to see over the last number of years. I know you showed us in the last quarter, Councillor Sampson, there wasn't a littering offense since April 1st, but I'd be curious to see over the last number of years, what those stats are. So would councillors be okay with a motion to defer request for enforcement information either over to PAC, or maybe I could just send him a note, like I could just email him and get that information. Would that?
I would say just reach out personally in the
Yeah,
session
okay.
for it.
I will do that then. So,
I'll also say that Callie did have, she provided some examples that she found where other, like cities and municipalities have done things to try to combat the issue even after the fact. And one of the comments that she made was talking about student grants and those students being tasked with cleaning up litter. And it's interesting because I somewhere along the path saw another comment about, I used to work for the county in the summer and that was my summer job, was like walking the sides of the road. Because although we do a lot of community cleanups, we certainly see those areas that are not, for lack of a better word, designated as the community, right? Like particularly by the waste management facility, it's a bit of a mess, right? And I think it's because in some cases it could be very innocent in that people are going to the waste management facility and stuff flies out of their vehicles or whatever. And so I wouldn't necessarily commit to that, but I would be interested to make a motion to refer that to budget for next year to just get an idea of what something like that could cost us. And then, if we think a bit about the whole cost benefit for tourism and just for pride in our community, what that could look like, is it may be a minimal cost for a great reward. So I would make that motion to refer that to budget for next year.
okay, so the motion is to refer to budget the potential of hiring students to deal with cleanup issues. Yeah.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Sampson. Any further discussion on that item?
Just a thank you to Kelly for bringing it to the attention of us and the public. Although we know it's there, we tend to drive by it every day. And
Stop seeing it after a while, for sure, yeah. Okay, so all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried.
And there you have it, folks. That wraps up this week's edition of Telile 24/7. Thank you for tuning in, and a big thank you to my interview guests this week, Tahirh Paul and Keith MacDonald. Special thanks to Amanda Mombourquette for speaking to me after the Richmond Municipal Council meeting on Monday. And thank you to my Telile colleagues Cody Pardy, Nick Boudreau, and Becky Bourinot for filming and formatting that interview segment and the council footage that was used in this episode. If you have any thoughts about what you've seen over the past hour, or just some suggestions for future editions of Telile 24/7, feel free to contact me personally or to send your ideas and comments to Telile Community Television in Aeroshat. And be sure to follow Telile on social media. For now, I'm Adam Cook. Thank you once again for joining me for Telile 24/7. Happy Canada Day, and I look forward to seeing you again next week with a brand new show. Bye for now.